groups of albinos. So ultimately, if we're talking about the dichotomy albino African, what are you saying?
No, I'm not talking about that dichotomy. I'm talking about within within the parameters of the African people. There is a range of physical features.
No, I'm talking about melanin pigment now. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Perhaps we should talk about that at the end.
Okay.
My point being that there are so many different types of people who are Africans. And I went over, I said, just, are they going to accept me? I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to this I don't normally say. I suffer. Yeah. I suffered in that. There were times that I slept on beds with, 20, 30 mice crawling in me at night. I have been bit in one night by 250 mosquitoes. I'm here. Then I also had my cars and I had the big houses and the rest of that stuff too. I didn't go over there like most people do. Most people go over with some big organization and they say, you know what, you're a John. So you're European. You act like the Europeans. But I didn't do that. I went on my own, by myself, didn't know anybody, but it's a spiritual mission. Okay, and as a result, I interacted with all kinds of people. And I found out that as soon as I shed some of my own biases about Africa, that the people opened up to me. Okay, and that they shared their lives with me. And part of their sharing their life was that, yes, they had friends like me who were Africans like me too. I discovered in Dogon country in Mali that I was as much of an African as anybody on the face of the earth. The little light-skinned Dawud, the brown skin, red bone, whatever you want to call me, I don't care. African, you understand? And the nature, the urban nature of West Africa, we can hit right to here. Recognize this, and there are lots of different types of people in the cities and other parts of West Africa. This is a Fulani woman from Guinea. This is the source of this is Le Tour du Monde, 1898. Okay, next please. We're just going to go through. Could you? Just going to go through a few slides. Again, very different type. Yoruba facial features. Beautiful bronze work from the 16th century. You see the difference? We're just going to go through this real quickly, because we got the substance of the discussion to still come. Okay, next please. Moors. These are Moors not in Morocco, but in Timbuktu. In 1898, in a French source called Timbuktu Mystérieuse. Right? By René, it wasn't René Du Bois, Du Bois. Yeah, Timbuktu Mysterious, right? This is from that source. Moors were all kinds of different looking people. There were all kinds of Moors. There were all kinds of Moors. Moors were one of the most varied looking people I've ever come across. Next, please. Just to give you an idea. From Timbuktu, the same source, the same time frame, a different group of Bambara women. From Timbuktu, from the same city. Same time. Next, please. Here we have different types of Bambara dress. All of these people have on different kinds of shoes. All of them. And they also all have different kinds of dress. This is from the, again, one of the quarters of Kong in 1886. Next, please. This is the Dahomian courtier, I guess, courtier. Is that a good word? You like that word? From 1894. I got to ask you a question. Okay, so y'all raised your hand and you said you were intelligent, right? Okay. How many of you have ever seen 10 or more Africans on horseback depicted somewhere?
You mean of the continent itself?
Yes. 10 or more. Now, this doesn't detract from your intelligence. Okay, it tells us something about the notion that we follow when we follow the polemic that, you know, it all went downhill, guys. Don't look no more over there. Look to what's happening here. We published a piece. Let me hit the lights for a second. I got to show you this, because we're going to get into this for a second. We published a piece, and this is just a bad Xerox of it. I probably have a better cover somewhere. This is just a mock-up called The 100,000 Horsemen of West Africa. The 100,000. And we took the year 1900 AD, 90 years ago, to be the date that we would compile this number. And this particular piece is just a synthesis of some of the various regions and the documents that exist in the records of African history on the use of the horse. I used to, in Wa, in northern Ghana, I used to get up every morning right after Fajr Salah, usually about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and go riding horses. And I put on my African boots, you know, get on the African saddle, the African cloth on it, and ride the African horse anywhere my African behind wanted to go. So to speak. The traditions of the widespread use of the horse were as we said that, didn't we? The traditions of equestrian societies were as widespread in West Africa as any other place in the world. And I know that's a little difficult because here we are, self-confessed, intelligent people. I mean, how is it that we've read all this African history and this fundamental character of the society has not been exposed to us? I contend it is because we are not looking there, because we are told, well, the two slave trades came in there, boom. You know, everything went downhill, boom, Europeans came in there. I mean, that tells you you don't need to look there. You know, that's like somebody saying, oh yeah, don't look and don't go into that mine. There's nothing there. And you say, okay, okie doke. So we're going to examine for just a few minutes, just a few of the hundreds of illustrations that exist in the record depicting the widespread use of the horse in West Africa. Next, please. Horses, donkeys, camels, and cattle were widely found and used in West Africa, both as forms of transportation, for military purposes, and as pack animals. This is a photograph from about 1906 in the area of Lake Chad. Next, please. If a picture were painted from African history with thousands of horsemen riding back and forth between huge walled cities, most of us wouldn't believe it. Yet that very same picture is painted by the records of African history. This is a photograph from the year 1926, the year my father was born, from Lake Chad. In it you see a small section of 5,000, and you look at these people. These are Africans, right? Now you can say, I've seen more than 10 Africans on horseback. But it's more, it's deeper than that too. This particular illustration is just one of the many that exist. So we're going to go through some of those now, please. This is an illustration from 1898 of part of the bodyguard of the Sultan of Bornu. Okay. I am absolutely going to have to read this because I want to share this with you. Y'all are giving me all the time I want, right? I have to tell you something, too. I'm a Redskin ticket holder, a season ticket holder. I could have been at the game. That's okay. We talked about that. He laughed at me when I told him. You know, but I'm telling you, there's something in the air this evening. Could we get the light for a second, that light? I want to read something to you. And I could show you where it's from. This is one of the first encounters that the Europeans had with large numbers of African horsemen. And it's relevant because it takes place roughly around the same time of an exposure to horsemen that we've seen on television in this country. How many of you have seen shock? Where the Europeans brought the horses, and Shock was trying to figure out how much endurance he had, and just ran these brothers to the ground to figure out that. That was roughly in the year 1823, 1824. Okay, anybody remember that date? We do a piece on Shock and the Rise of Zulu, too, using authentic historical illustrations. Okay, that was roughly around 1824. Now check this out in West Africa. This is the first European group that is visiting the Empire of Bornu. And as a matter of fact, since y'all have given me free rein, I'm going to expand on it. Do you mind? First I got to find it. Now really there are volumes and volumes of these explorer accounts or European accounts. It's only useful because we read European languages. But they are useful because if you understand what they were seeing, it tells you stuff that they don't see in their own writings. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. Now this was the first encounter with the Major Denham Dixon's diary in 1826. There's another history aspect to this illustration. One of the things they used to do is take the materials from the early explorers and have graphic artists redo them. So you'll see the same illustration in a German work or in a French work and in a British work, but there's only one original. And the trick is to know which is the original or how to use the rest of them to effectively and accurately express historical information. Okay, at any rate, this is based on Major Denham Dixon's account of his encounter, his first encounter with the Bornu Army in 1826. Okay, his journal reads thusly. February 17th. This is this is not 1826, this is 1822 when this was written, published in 1826. February 17th. Tell me if I'm boring you. Okay. But I don't usually do this. I usually just pop through it real quick and do questions at the end. But you guys said you wanted the deluxe version, so I'm trying to lay it out for you. Okay? This was to us a momentous day, and it seemed to be equally so to our conductors. Now, their conductors were a group of Arabs who had traveled with them on horseback across the Sahara, and they were about to become the first whites to visit the Empire of Bornu, which is in West Africa, around the area of Lake Chad, northern Nigeria. Okay? Notwithstanding all the difficulties that had presented themselves at various stages of our journey, we were at last within a few short miles of our destination. We were about to become acquainted with a people who we had never seen or scarcely heard of, a European, and to tread on ground the knowledge and true situation of which had hitherto been wholly unknown. Now, isn't there something a little odd in this, first of all? Here we are, 1823, they've been trading slaves on the coast, you know, for 300 years. And they said, whoa, man, we're finally getting to go on the inside. We're going to discuss that in some parts of this discussion, too. That's an important thing to recognize. Europeans did not penetrate Africa until almost after the slave trade. Okay. Okay. The ideas, of course, excited no common sensations and could scarcely be unaccompanied by strong hopes of our labors being beneficial to the race amongst whom we were shortly to mix, of our laying the first stone of a work which might lead to their civilization. This is white boy talk. Okay? This is a beautiful piece. At the end of this piece, this white boy is butt naked, running from these guys, jumping over into cliffs and falling into the ocean and praying for his life. That's what happens by the end of this, episode. Okay? That's exactly what happens. And please read it. Okay. Our accounts have been so let's see. are laying the first stone of a work which might lead to their civilizations, if not their emancipation from all their prejudices and ignorance, and probably at the same time open the field of commerce to our own country, which might increase its wealth and prosperity. Very high-handed arrogance. I was rolling on the ground when I was reading about this guy, and he was laying out there. I mean, he, you know, anyway, we're talking about it. Okay, our accounts have been so contradictory of the state of this country that no opinion could be formed as to the real condition or numbers of its inhabitants. We have been told that the Sheikh's soldiers, that is the Sheikh of Bornu, soldiers, were a few ragged Negroes armed with spears who lived upon the plunder of the black Kaffir countries by which he was surrounded. Kaffir, in this sense, being the Arabic term for disbeliever. Okay, the Arabic term for disbeliever. You know, which is, we'll get to that too, if you like. By which he was surrounded, in which he was enabled to subdue by the assistance of a few Arabs who were in his service. And again, we have been assured that his forces were not only numerous, but to a certain degree well-trained. Moving forward, we advanced toward the town of Kuka in a most interesting state of uncertainty, whether we should find its chief at the head of thousands or be received by him under a tree surrounded by a few naked slaves. Okay, so he gets a little restless. He starts to ride ahead of his traveling companions. It says, I rode onward still, and on approaching a spot less thickly planted, in other words, a clearing in the you know, a patch of clearing in the forest or whatever he's been riding in, was not a little surprised to see in front of me a body of several thousand cavalry drawn up in a line, extending right and left quite as far as I could see. And checking my horse, I awaited the arrival of my party under the shade of a wide-spreading, how do you pronounce this word? Acacia tree? Acacia, thank you. He goes on. The Bornu troops remained quite steady, without noise or confusion, and a few horsemen who were moving about in front giving directions. Remember, everybody's on horseback. All the thousands of them are on horseback. Okay, now think about Shaka Zulu. He said, I wonder how far this horse will run. And this guy comes up, I don't know what to expect. You see what I'm saying? It's not over. It's a very vivid account. The Bornu troops remained quite steady, without noise or confusion, and a few horsemen who were moving about in front giving directions were the only persons out of rank. Only on the Arabs appearing in sight, a shout or yell was given by the Sheikh's people, which rent the air. A blast was blown from their rude instruments of music equally loud, and they moved on to meet Bu Kaloum and the Arabs. Bu Kaloum was the leader of the Arabs. Later in this story, he's going out saying, yeah, let's get a village for slaves. And then they drag his body back. That's what happens in this story. Okay, 1822, sorry. Listen to this. There was an appearance of tact and management in their movements which astonished me. 3 separate bodies from the center and each flank kept charging. I'm gonna demonstrate, if you don't mind. They kept charging rapidly toward us to within a few feet of our heads without checking their speed until the moment of their halt, right? While the whole body moved forwards. In other words, these brothers came at I have a picture of this. In fact, I use this for the poster of the urban heritage of West Africa. It's from another source, a French source, but it is exactly the same event, same type of event. Where did urban heritage go? Oh, over here. Okay. Here. Can you all see this? You can circulate it if you like. Okay. So in other words, these brothers, charged at them full gallop. at full gallop with the spears fully extended and stopped on a dime without killing them. Okay. You can see in that the horse is scared. That the European horse is, whoa, what's going on? You know, that's an example of the horse saying, whoa, huh? Okay. Okay, I didn't lose my place. Here we are. These parties were mounted on small but very perfect horses who stopped and wheeled from their utmost speed with great precision and expertness, shaking their spears over their heads, exclaiming, Baraka, Baraka, Al-Haykum Shah Al-Asherga, blessing, blessing, sons of your country, and returning quickly through the front of the body in order to repeat the charge. While all this was going on, they closed in their right and left flanks and surrounded the little body of Arab warriors so completely as to give the compliment of welcoming them very much the appearance of a declaration of their contempt for their weakness. I'm quite sure this was premeditated. We were all so closely pressed as to be nearly smothered and in some danger from the crowding of the horses and the clashing of spears. First encounter. See? Now, part of history, you understand? This is a historical record, historical account. Says that the first, how come they had the film showing us of Shaka saying, "Oh, what is this big animal?" See what I'm saying? Now, Shaka is a different story. It's a different episode. It has its own dynamic, and it's very important. Okay, but in regard to the equestrian traditions of Africa, it doesn't say very much. Okay, you really don't mind me wandering? I'm enjoying this. I'm really getting to have some. I rarely get this much fun. Give you another example from the same time period and using the same comparison of Shaka Zulu with what was happening in Bornu, in West Africa. Okay? Remember the scene in Shaka Zulu where you had this European takes a piece of charred stick and he writes Shaka on the back of an animal skin, and Shaka says, I love this line, what's this marking? Remember that line? What's this marking? He had a great voice. I like his voice in that. Okay? He said, what's this marking? Same year. Same expedition. There was Denham and Clapperton and some other people wrote accounts of this particular expedition. And so they go to the Sultan of Bornu and they meet him and they say, Sultan, we have a gift for you. You know what it was? It was an Arabic copy of the Greek mathematician Euclid. And the Sultan said, thank you, thank you. How did you know? My copy of Euclid just burned up in a fire a little while ago. I swear to Allah, that's what the record says. So, I mean, we're talking about a very, different kind of perspective, aren't we? Now, how come we don't see that part of it? So, the use of the horse, wide numbers, is a very, very well documented and very important part of the parts of Africa that we came from. We're going to take another look at a few more of these. We have a whole 2.5-hour presentation we do on this subject called 100,000 Horsemen of West Africa. We go into the regions, and we go into the documents in the regions because it's important not just to say it, but you can also document. Then you can go and look on your own. It's not about you saying, hey, this guy, knows. So what? I could die tomorrow, tonight. I'm trying to share with you so that all of us can benefit. And then you share with me. Let's continue with the slides. Okay, so this is an image that was redone in an American source in 1898 of the same bodyguard of the Sultan of the Sheikh of Bornu that was described a few minutes ago. Okay, next please. Masi. The Masi in what's now Burkina Faso were a horse breeding peoples who traded in thousands and thousands of horses. The Masi were, this is a Masi prince, Bukhari, and his personal bodyguard. 1886, when I was there, to give you an idea how long it was when I was in this region, it used to be called Upper Volta. And so in my head, I haven't changed it yet. That's how long ago I was in this region. Next, please. This is beautiful. Just look at this illustration. It is published from a French source called Deux Campagnes au Soudan Français by Lieutenant Colonel Gallieni, published by Hachette Press in Paris in the year 1891. The illustration itself is about this big. It's about this big, but I like to really look carefully, you know, because there's a lot of stuff in there. Look at this carefully. These are the sons. You see the young boys on the horses? These are the sons of Samurai Toure being trained in horsemanship. This is a historical record. I mean, if I would have said in the beginning, how many of you have ever seen illustrations of 10 African boys on horses? That would have been ludicrous. See what I'm saying? But here's the historical records. We have to know that the urban heritage of West Africa was so vastly different than the stereotype that we get that we have to start looking and finding things. It's a very rewarding field. This is an illustration that I would love to have to see in every black child's house somewhere, every black family's house. There's a lot of love in this illustration. Next, please. Okay. In terms of, you know, questions that come up, how, you know, the nature of horses in Africa. How do horses get there? Big questions. Again, we have a whole presentation about that. Just to give you an example, there were horses in Egypt, for example, 1750 BC and that kind of, in that period. And there were also wild horses that migrated across the Great Flat Lands, right, the savannas, and into West Africa. These horses that are, I don't know what, not traditional breeds, but historical African breeds, are generally small. And they're called in many European journals ponies. And you notice, see how small this is. It's not a big horse. Okay, now this was one extreme, or not extreme, this was one end of the scale in horses. There were thousands of people who rode thousands of horses in this particular scale. And next, please, there's another end of the scale where you had very large horses. This is a photograph from 1899